Yes, I can only say a few things for now, but if the questions come, we shall answer them the way we deem fit and how we can promote our industry. Yes, I would say that the time is ripe now for us to think of increasing our capital again. Though in the end, we can say that increasing the capital alone is not sufficient. That will not solve the problem for us because we can even increase the capital to 500 million beyond the bank's level. But if there are some ills in the industry, if they are not solved, the purpose of growth and increasing and improving the penetration, I'm sure we cannot achieve it. But what I want to say is that the time is right for capital increase because what the Commission needs to do, the level it should be in terms of capacity, I'm sure they've gotten to some level. They've managed to improve their prudential and financial reporting requirements. They are now in the process of implementing the risk-based approach to supervision, where they will relate the capital to your levels of business. All those things are in place now. So if they are coming out with a capital level, so meaning they are trying to relate the level of your liabilities you are carrying in your books to the level of capital that you need to absorb those levels. It is because, from what I know, our insurance industry is not profitable. If I'm not mistaken, the capital level that will be increased, it may be used to absorb losses. Because I can say that for the past 7 years in the industry, there is the need to do a lot for insurance industries to move from the loss-making to profit-making before the capital can grow. And at that level, they can now think of carrying on bigger businesses where the income can come. Other than that, the capital will come, the problem will still be there. It is something we need to look at seriously. The other issue I want to also say is that if we are not careful, the capital we are going to increase may also be used to improve their reserving problems. If I say reserving, those insurance industries, they know what I'm talking about. If you actually know their database and the level of reserving they are carrying in their books to support the liabilities, from afar, you can see that there is a lot more to be done. Because if the books are clean and the levels are clear, you can see that the level of reserves you have in the books will not be sufficient to carry your liabilities. So your capital may come, but it will also go further to just improve and cushion your reserves. And the purpose of increasing it for growth and for penetration, it will not be reached. But I can say that the capital, we have to do it before the penetration and the growth can be realized. As everybody keeps saying, we are in the informal sector, the insurance sector. Those who are having insurance policies, they are very few in the formal sector. We have to go into the informal sector. But the issue is that informal sector, if we want to improve the penetration, we need to come out with some levels. Will the ordinary insurance companies will be allowed to go into the microinsurance sector where we hope it can reach out to the rural population for the penetration to improve. If that is not possible, do we have to go the bank's way, where we license separate companies like microinsurance companies with smaller capital levels who can go into such sectors, but with the experience from the banking sector, where they go into microfinance and small things and they've burned their fingers. All of them are collapsing, they are not doing well. It is from experience, so which we may not even encourage for now to license them to just go to microinsurance to improve their penetration. If that is not possible, then we should be thinking of raising the capital levels of the current companies so that they can both combine the conventional product with the microinsurance product to increase the penetration. So capital requirements, it is needed, but whether we should match it to risk-based so that no matter what you provide, the level of liability you want to carry, you'll be allowed to have the capital level that will support it. or the blanket type, whether you are big, you are small, you need one level of capital, it is something we can all debate and come with a solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Simon Dava. Indeed, he's spoken like somebody who was at the regulatory level overseeing things. But my argument is, which one comes first? Is it a more of a chicken and egg situation? Let's improve the governance issues and then do the capital, or let's do the capital first and let's deal with the governance issue. But let me bring in the brokers, those who deal directly with the people and the public. I mean, for you, whether indeed people having challenges with their premiums and payment and delays, raising the capital will address. But let me hear first your preliminary comment first.
Before I make any comment, I want to share this scenario with you. This is, I've analyzed the report from GOGIP, that is Ghana Oil and Gas Insurance Pool. Insurance industry have come together to form a company to underwrite big business, and oil and gas is supposed to be the biggest business we are undertaking right now. I'm taking just 2014 figures. In 2014, the gross premium, that is premium that was paid on oil and gas, amounted to 49,298,483 cedis. Of this, 44,269,126 cedis was repatriated. That is capital flight. 89.73% of the money generated in the country went overseas. Of this, of the 49,298,483 cedis, only 922,730 cedis was retained by insurance companies in Ghana. That is, the retention is 1.87%. Then, of this, the commission they gave to those who, the commission they gave to the brokers amounted to 3,822,858. That was 7.8%. And the claims on this huge amount that came to the country was 283,769, not even 1 million. The combined amount that was retained in the country was 10.27, which totaled 5,029,357. So you see that we generate the business in Ghana, but we're unable to retain the business. What's the reason? The reason is that we don't have the capacity to underwrite the business and retain it in the country, because the capitalization of the insurance industry is very, very, very low. So all of us should support the idea of increasing the capital. That will build financial capacity to enable us underwrite big business in Ghana and retain it. So this is what I want to share with you. So I'm in full support of this. But how we should go about it is what we need to debate or discuss so that we find a middle line that will be acceptable and that will not collapse the local indigenous companies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nsiefri. It looks like we all agree that we need to go to Mantim and Kebi. Whether we need to go through the south to get there or the west to get there, that is where the argument is. Let me bring in Mr. Robert Dzato. He's with KPMG. Just your preliminary comment. I'm told you had a presentation to me, but let's have your preliminary comment first, please.
So thank you. I think that if you listen to the figures, the debate is not about whether we should increase capital or not. And I think that's an important point to remember. Just giving you some context in terms of some other regulators who have increased capital. And regulators will always increase capital. Also, if you look at it in the context of what has happened in the banking industry, like the minister said, or the deputy minister said, we really want to make our financial system safe and sound. And that requires some level of capitalization. And that's critical. So take Malaysia, for example. In 2001, they increased their capital for insurers from 13.1 billion to 26.3 billion. Take Indonesia. In 2008, 4.3 million to 7.3 in 2012. Take our own context. We've increased capital from 5 million to 15 million. Now we're talking about increasing that. If you look at where we were pre-2015, it was 5 million to 15 million. That's over close to 200% increment. So if I think, or we do some back from the future thinking, almost every so often, 4 or 5 years, capital gets increased. We know in Nigeria currently for insurers there's conversation about increasing capital. In fact, that is almost kicking in. They have decided to use a tier approach. So let me make that point again, that the debate is not about whether we need capital or not. It is what is the level of capital, what is the quantity and quality of capital. But even more importantly, if we think back from the future, it will mean that we'll have this capital debate again 5 years down the line, and that would increase to a certain level. So should we move away from the compliance-based recapitalization to some risk-based capitalization? I know the former commissioner mentioned that, that there are pillars in place to make that happen, which is to say, let's tie the level of capital that any particular institution needs to its risk profile and the economic activities that it's undertaking. Those would be my preliminary thoughts.
Let me get to the Deputy Minister of Finance, and he's made his open remarks already, so I'll just shoot ahead with the questions. When you heard what Mr. Nsiefie talked about the capital flight, and when I heard that, I thought about the Ghana cedi. And so what can we say that, from your perspective, what is the policy direction in ensuring that whatever capital that we settle on, whatever approach we go, we protect the indigenous owners and operators? I mean, exports are improving, but the monies are going to foreign companies and not local companies.
Well, thank you. Listening to him, I rather was asking this question. So, what is your advice to government? What should the policy response be? I mean, you understand the industry far more than politicians do. And if you have this existing in the industry, we need you to advise us on what dynamics cause this and what kind of policy responses are necessary. I kind of gathered from your contribution that one of the solutions will be this increased capital. That is helpful, but I have to say we're open more to this kind of discussion because improved capital alone may not necessarily address the concerns we have. And since I may not have the opportunity to be part of this discussion for longer than I would have loved to, I have to leave for Parliament. Let me take this opportunity to also make this point. I'm gathering, it's good I came this morning, I'm gathering that perhaps the increased capital requirement for insurance will not be as acrimonious as it was for the banking sector. There appears to be quite some consensus that this definitely is necessary. And of course, as was indicated, the discussion then becomes, so how do we do it in order that we achieve the balance that I earlier on referred to? And on that point, we have mentioned that a tier system may well be the solution. I don't know. I'm not an expert in this industry. But from a common sense point of view, we should be careful the way we also create an industry in which you have the foreign players at the top tier. And then you have the indigenous companies at the lower tiers, so that necessarily the big businesses would go to the big boys anyway. And in the end, we are going to ask ourselves the question, is this what we really bargained for? Was this your objective? Was this where we wanted to go? So the discussion ought to be, in my opinion, more sensitive than perhaps a simple, straightforward question of a tier system, because that is discussed because people want to protect other people's daily bread. I mean, instead of going out of business, at least let me do some small business. But against the broader objectives of the industry, it may be something that we should consider carefully.